Good afternoon and welcome to the session. And we will continue our journey in the process of ensuring human resource management practices in international organizations. So, my students, like in our previous class, we have understood the importance of human resources for the growth and development of an international organization. So, whenever we are dealing with human resources, as if P. Morgan's model says, human resource management is all about acquiring people, utilizing them, motivating them, and retaining them so that we will be able to achieve the organization success on a long run. The basic objective of the organization in an international operation is its sustainability. Most of the organizations do end up their international assignments in between, reason being the human resources which have not been taken or which have been forgotten like that. So it's not that only if we will have good human resources in the board, that will make the organization a successful one, but we need to talk of the basic competitive advantage of the organizations that can be achieved through the human resources of the organization. We have understood that the present day's business is characterized as the VUCA business, where the business is characterized as volatility, uncertainties, complex, and ambiguous itself. We say that there is a requirement of a first changing competences among the human resources of the organization. The basic skill, knowledge, attitude of the human resources need to be fastened down. Not only that, we are talking of the reason with the fast mobility of human resources across the globe requires a systematic approach to groom or to develop the human resources of the organization. So the thrust is on the training and developmental aspects of the international organization. We cannot ensure that if we do have the right kind of people. Like in our previous class, we have understood that whenever we are dealing with human resources of the organization, we deal with three different category of human resources. Like we are dealing with the parent country nationals or the home country nationals. We are dealing with the host country nationals. We are dealing with the third country nationals. And there is a wide range of diversity that exists among these three broad category of human resources. To what way we can enable these human beings contributing their efforts towards the organization is a matter of fact. So that is why the thrust should be on the training and developmental issues in international context. So in this particular unit, we are going to discuss in detail the different aspects of training and development related to the internationalization process of the organization. So let's start our journey. Now, most of the time, we do take this training and development as a separate vertical. But whenever it comes to the international assignments, we need to understand one thing, that this international assignment itself is a training and development tool. So where we assume that the international assignees, they do get a hands-on experience by engaging themselves in various activities under this international assignment. And that is what that leads them to disseminate their knowledge to the successors of their part in the international process. So these expatriates, they are expected to assist in the transfer of knowledge, the competencies, in terms of the different units that, or in terms of the different subsidiaries of the basic organization itself. As because we do come out with the diversities in terms of the culture, traditions, fooding habits, clothing habits of the employees operating in different subsidiaries. So one subsidiary may have a complete different set of characteristics as of the other subsidiaries. And the role of the managers over there is very important. Expatriates, we say they are responsible for implementing any such new kind of system in any such new subsidiary. Right? Because establishing a subsidiary is a very hectic process. We'll explore that later on. Right? So, making the successful implementation of the entire process requires dedicated effort, and that is what is being expected from the expatriates who have gained their experiences out of the process itself. So we say that it's not that only a kind of job rotation that the expatriates do have from one subsidiary to the other, but it has got a larger scope. In a sense, that the expatriates can be able to give a broader perspective of internationalization process. And that is why we say that the training and development of these expatriates are highly important for the organizational context. Beyond that, if we were to talk of the basic roles and responsibilities of the training program itself, we say that these training programs are highly essential in terms of making these expatriates to get themselves adapted, adjusted in their unassignment performances, international assignments itself. Most of the time, we do talk of this internationalization process, which deals with different sort of external factors like political, social, economical, even legal factors. Right? The success or failure of the organization depends finding out the differences among these host country practices to the home country practices and implementing the same in a customized way as a matter of policy of the host country itself. So that is why how these expatriates get themselves acquainted with the host country situations is important, and training and development plays a very important role over there. Not only that, host country, like whenever we do talk of these expatriates being assigned with any international assignment, we do say that they should be equipped beforehand before accepting any kind of international assignment. So we come out with the role of a pre-departure training, which includes, the kind of cultural awareness that should be there among the people, which briefly explains them the differences in terms of the home country to the host country itself. If at all it is required, these people should be facilitated with a preliminary visit before they take up that particular assignment. Most important is the language, maybe verbal or non-verbal, whatever it may be, but getting accommodated with the language of the host country. And if at all there is a gap, how to bridge that gap in terms of this language barrier, right? So that has to be taken into consideration. Not only that, we want these international assignees to continue on a long run, making a career in international assignment itself. So it's not that only the job or tax related issues are to be dealt with, but international assignees should be developed in terms of their career prospectus. So, like in unit 9, we'll discuss that. What are the aspects that is required to be taken into consideration by the expatriate managers when this international career is a matter of concern. But overall, we do have the objective that these international assignments should focus on the development of the human resources. The quality of human resources should be enhanced. The adaptability of the human resources should be enhanced. Overall, we can say that it's a human resources which can bring it to the success. So the basic process, as if you can see it in the diagram itself, what it says, like, we are recruiting people, but recruiting people is not the solution. Ensuring that the people who are recruited are properly utilized in the organization, and the role of training and development is highly significant in that particular process. So whenever we are assigning or we are selecting few such candidates for any international assignment, we are talking of their training in terms of two different aspects. Like, we are talking of their pre-departure training itself, and we are talking of their development. Right. So this pre-departure training can be made in terms of particular assignments, whatever this international organizations do have, or particular jobs what the international organizations do have. And beyond that, there may be developmental aspects which can be taken into consideration for the individual employee itself. Right? So overall success of the organization may be completely based on the level of training and development that we do facilitate or provide to this international assignments. Now, if we to talk of the basic strategies on the basis of which we are imparting these training and developmental measures, we can classify it in terms of four such different aspects. First, we're talking of developing these expatriates based on the roles and responsibilities, in a sense, whether these expatriates are assigned with short-term international assignments or are assigned with a long-term project. So first thing is that we need to talk of the involvement of the international assignment. So if it is a short-term, then the requirement of the training program would be different. If it is a long-term assignment, then the requirement of the training program would be different. So we need to talk of the association of those expatriates in the process of internationalization process. Second, we are talking of this staffing orientation that is adopted by the subsidiary itself. In our previous class, we have understood that we are dealing with PCNs, parent country nationals, host country nationals, third country nationals. What sort of staffing orientation I do have? I cannot have similar sort of training strategies for parent country nationals who are deputed to the host country as the expatriates. We cannot have the similar sort of strategies for host country nationals operating in host country itself. Or we may not have the similar sort of strategies for third country nationals. So depending on the staffing orientations of the organization, these training programs are to be customized, are to be modulated, so that the specific requirement of the people can be taken into consideration. So this is the second such important strategy that this training program should have. Third, we do talk of the level of control and coordination, these linkages that the parent country and the host country does have. Now, what it says, like, to what extent there is a difference in terms of the parent country's cultural predispositions to the host country's cultural predispositions. To what extent there is a reliance of the host country on the parent country. To what extent this host country communicates, the frequency of communication is there between the host country to the parent country. So based on the kind of similarities or dissimilarities among the culture of the parent country and the host country, based on the interaction that takes place between the parent country to the host country, different sort of training strategies are to be adopted. What we would like to explain is that you cannot have a similar sort of training strategy for all such purposes. It has to be customized every time. We're talking of the roles and responsibilities of these expatriates in the process itself. Roles and responsibilities, in a sense, like sometimes we do talk of these expatriates playing a very significant role in establishing the business in the host country itself. Some of the expatriates to continue to operate in the host country. Some expatriates do play a very crucial role in terms of handling the problems emerging out of the process. So based on the roles and responsibilities that are to be paid by the expatriates in the process of internationalization, the intensity of the training program is dependent on. So based on these four strategies, whether these assignments are long-term or short-term, what is the orientation of the staffing for the subsidiary? What level of control and coordination is there between the subsidiary and the parent country headquarters? And what sort of roles and responsibilities that these individual expatriates are expected to play? Based on that only, we do come out with the basic aspects of this training program. However, whenever we are talking of this international training, out of all the different modules of the training program, the most important and the significant aspect of the training which deals with the adaptability of these expatriates in the host country itself. Adaptability mostly focuses on the cultural predispositions. So somehow rather, we do talk of this international training as cross-cultural training, CCTs, right? Because the thrust is more on making the people adapted to different cultures. Out of all other modules of the training program, that is what we do talk of, right? So even if we do talk of this entire training module being taken in a different way, what we want is that all of these cross-cultural training programs do focus on the cognitive components of the people, right? It impacts the kind of thought process that this international assignments should have. It also focuses on the affective components of their own, the kind of relationship, emotional involvement that they do have, and maybe in terms of their behavioral. So the cross-cultural training focuses on three different important aspects, like their cognitive, affective, and behavioral aspects in terms of their personality itself, which will ultimately make the organization successful, because people who can really bring a change in terms of these attributes will sustain there in the international assignment for a long term. That is what we need to understand. So we do talk of this international assignment process, but let us understand the different phases of this international assignments itself. So the first phase is, you know, to talk of the training objective itself. Second is what type of global assignment you are having, or the based on which your cross-cultural training is required. Determining the specific cross-cultural training requirements. We're talking of establishing the goals and measures for the training effectiveness, developing and delivering these cross-cultural training programs, and then evaluating the effectiveness of this cross-cultural training program. This is in general the sequence of steps that we need to take into consideration for implementing the training program in international organizations. Let us have a detailed discussion of all of those aspects. I think we have understood now there are 6 such phases of this international training program, etc. The phase 1 is deciding the objectives of the training program. Phase 2 is the kind of assignment. Phase 3 is the training need analysis. Phase 4 is the training program, and phase 5 is how to develop and deliver that. Phase 6 is evaluation. Let us talk of the first such phase. The basic, like whenever we are talking of imparting this training program, we need to clearly specify the reason for which we are imparting this training. The objectives are to be clearly specified. So objectives can be like bridging the gap in terms of the cultural differences between this host country to the parent country itself. And most of the international training programs do have this as the first and primary objective, bridging the gap between the cultural differences that we do have. We need to talk of the basic objective is to ensure that the expatriates are oriented, are inducted into different systems in a proper way. So here what we need to understand is that the basic orientation and induction challenges that the host country and the parent country do have, overcoming those kind of induction and orientation challenges is another objective of the training program. We are thinking of that the organization's success depends on the long-term involvement of the expatriates in the process itself. So whenever we do define the basic objectives of the training program, to say that this organizational factors, organizational success factors should be dealt in. And whenever we are talking of this training program, the training program should enable my employees to gain that competitive advantage over the international competitors. So whenever we are talking of this training objectives, it has got its personal to organizational level of requirements. And based on that only, we need to specify a particular kind of training program that has to be imparted to the employees of the organization. That is what we need to understand. Phase 2 is to identify the level of assignments that these expatriates are going to take. Say, broadly, there are 4 such different sort of categories we can have. 4 different category of assignments people may take, expatriates may take. First one, whenever we talk of these expatriates, they may be the chief executive officers. Now, whenever we are talking of this chief executive officer's role in international assignment, they are having a control, the entire control operations of the subsidiary is in the hand of this CEOs. So they oversee the international assignments, they direct the international assignments, right? So they are the people who are responsible for taking the entire subsidiary into account. Now, whenever I do talk of the role of CEO, where he has to involve himself in each and every aspect of the organization, what type of training program is required? An intensive cross-cultural training is required for all those people who are going to take up the responsibility of being a CEO in an international firm. Intensive cross-cultural training is required because the entire success factor depends on the involvement of the CEO itself. The second category of the people are like the structure reproducers. So these expatriates do have the responsibility of developing the structure at the subsidiary or the host country itself, or maybe they do have the responsibility of building and reproducing the structure at the international or in the host country itself, right? So once the task is over, they do return back to the parent country. So the involvement of these structural reproducers are for a specific period of time, and The role doesn't involve frequent interaction with the localites. So only internal structure development is what is assigned to them. So whenever I do talk of these structure reproducers, they may not go for a rigorous cross-cultural training. Generic cross-cultural training is what that is being expected for these structure reproducers. Now, if I do talk of these troubleshooters are the people who do have the responsibility of analyzing the problems and solving the specific operational problems in the host country. Analyzing and solving specific operational problems in the host country. So whenever I do have these troubleshooters, they need to have a frequent interaction with the local bodies. So troubleshooters need to undergo a very intense training program, cross-cultural training program, intense, highly intense. So they should be aware of each and every aspect of the cultural differences. That's all. Operational people are the people who perform their functional task in the organization. So whenever they do come out with their functional tasks, there is a requirement of interaction, but that interaction doesn't have much intensity. So not that this cross-cultural training program should be very intense for operational people, but somehow an overview of this cross-cultural training can be given for the operational people. So depending on the nature of the assignment that this international assignees do have, we need to customize the training modules on the basis of that. It cannot be uniform. Phase 3 is the analysis of training needs. It is out of a research, it has been found out that the most expensive vertical of the HR department is compensation. But the second such vertical where HR people do make maximum investment is on training and development. So unless and until there is a requirement of this training and developmental aspects for the organization or for the individual, providing training and developmental opportunities will lead to loss or damages of the kind of investment. So I may not get the proper ROI out of that. So that is why organizations need to take care of the requirement of the people, right? We're talking of analyzing the requirement need in 3 different levels: the organizational level, individual level, and job or assignment level. So organizational level of assignments do lead to analyze the basic goals of the organization, the strategies, and then subsequently we need to design a training module for that. Individual level analysis is what are the competency gaps in terms of the individual competency gaps that are to be taken into consideration. And whenever we do talk of assignment or job analysis, we do talk of the basic skills and knowledge required to perform that particular job. So 3 different level of analysis, and based on that only we need to design a kind of training program on this. 4th phase is to understand whether these goals are short-term or long-term in nature. Whenever I do talk of this short-term goals of the training program, long-term goals of the training program, I say short-term goals of the training program focuses on the accomplishment of the expatriates after the training program. Like short-term goals is like we impart the training program. Now at the end of the training program, we evaluate what is the impact of that. So imparting training program to assessment of the impact will be confined to these short-term goals of the training program. But whenever I do have this long-term goal of the training program, the long-term goals of the training program does have the success of the expatriate in the international assignment process. That is what we need to understand. Okay. However, now this phase 5 is crucial after deciding everything, where we are talking of developing the different contents of the training program. Developing and delivering the training program requires like course content, what sort of methods of training program that we can adapt for the transfer of knowledge, and sequencing them. Okay. And finally, this evaluating the short-term program. So let us talk of this phase 5, which talks of this delivering and developing the course content itself in detail. Now, if I have to talk of this course content of the training program itself, right? So more of this course content takes 4 different major aspects. First aspect is it should focus on the language training itself, right? The basic objective of this language training is to ensure that the people in the parent country, in the host country, they can communicate effectively. Now, even if we do say that English is an international language, but whenever we do talk of certain specific countries, like we are talking of the France, German, Japan, China, their people do not prefer to speak in English. They prefer to speak in local languages. So, the basic objective of this language training program is to ensure that the value systems associated with the culture reflected in terms of the languages are to be properly understood, interpreted by the expatriate managers. And if we'll not be able to do that, then probably there will be a great issue out of that. We are talking of this cultural training program. Cultural training program, as if we have understood, it can be imparted in 2 different ways. There can be generic orientation, general cultural orientation. There can be specific host country cultural orientation. So, depending on the kind of assignment itself, right? Whether the expatriates require this cross-cultural interactions, kind of understanding the basic purpose, value benefits of these global assignments, right? Or maybe dealing with the kind of stress during the process. All of those require the general cultural orientation. But whenever I do talk of a specific country's culture, the adaptation of the person in that particular country culture, maybe whenever we do talk of the family of the expatriates are being accompanied by, they need to get themselves acquainted with that particular culture. So in these kind of situations, we can think of specific host country cultural orientation. It has to be dealt with. So based on that, we do talk of this intensity of the cultural training program. As I was telling you some times ago, the intensity is based on 2 dimensions. First, it says, what is the degree of interaction that is there between the expatriates with the host country citizens? Degree of interaction of the expatriate with the host country citizen. Second, what is the level of similarity that is there between the parent country culture to the host country culture? Based on that only, we do come out with different sort of cultural training programs. So what we can see is that, let's just say, if the expected interaction between the assignee with the host country citizen is low, let's say there's least interaction among the people of the citizens of the host country with the kind of expatriate, and there is a high degree of similarity between the parent country culture to the host country culture. In this case, the focus should be on the job or task related issues, than on cross-cultural issues. Because similarity among the culture is high now and interaction is low. But whenever we do talk of the vice versa case, there's a huge dissimilarity between the host country culture to the parent country culture. And if the expatriate is expected to interact frequently with the citizens of the host country itself, so there the expatriate need to go through intensive cross-cultural training programs. Because this is where there's a more sensitive thing. So unless and until you do have a deeper insight into those cultural differences, the success factor may not be there. That's all, right? You're talking of practical assistances which are normally being extended by the organizations for its expatriates itself. We talk of mentoring, so we talk of employee assistance programs. Objective is that the expatriate or maybe the family member, accompanying family member, should not feel disguised at the host country itself. So, it is to orient them so that they can have that feel at home kind of concept, right? So these are the things that we do come out with when we do take into consideration the basic course content. So it varies from technicals to different personality aspects. Based on that, when we do talk of the methods of imparting this training program, let's understand. Now, there are 4 different ways in which we can impart the training program. The didactic general cultural training, the didactic specific cultural training, experiential general, and experiential specific cultural. Whenever we do talk of this didactic, it is more educational in nature. This sort of training program focuses more on imparting the knowledge, right? But when it comes to the experiential, this focuses more on the practical aspects of the training program. So let's talk. Whenever I do talk of didactic general, that means it is educative, providing basic knowledge, right? But the basic objective is to ensure that the expatriates do have a cognitive understanding of the host country culture, the norms, the behavioral patterns. So I need to have basic idea of the host country situation itself. So cognitive, right? In my mind, it should be there. So what are the methods that we can use whenever we do talk of this didactic general? This can be imparted through theoretical aspects, right? So different sort of lectures, seminars, study materials, discussions, videotapes, or culture general assimilators. These are some of the ways through which we can provide them basic conceptual idea of the international or of the uh, host country's culture. That is, but whenever we talk of, so this is as if we have understood, no, lectures, seminars, this videotapes, discussions, study materials, all of those are theoretical in nature. But whenever we talk of this didactic specific cultural training, we say here we need to ensure that the cultural nuisances are being dealt properly. Cultural nuisances are to be dealt properly. Right? So that is where we say that it has to be specific in terms of the expatriates assignment itself. What is that? Kind of training program is to provide them area studies. We are talking of video tapes can be there. We can think of orienting them to that specific cultural issues itself. If at all it is required, then preliminary visit to that particular place can be provided to that individual employee before taking up that assignment. However, another one way of making people to understand these cultural nuisances is to go through different case studies available. So these are the ways through which people can be made aware of the general issues related to the cross-cultural aspects itself. But whenever we talk of this experiential general and experiential specific itself, experiential general says here the training program is being imparted by the mentors or the assignees who have completed their international assignments before time, right, or prior to that event, right, and they would like to come out with a basic analysis of the impact of culture on the behavior. Right? So somewhere rather it has to be generic in nature, but is imparted through a particular person who has got prior experience and expertise of the said culture. So immersion programs can be there. Sometimes you can go for different sort of workshops which can help the individual employees to understand the deeper aspects through experiential sharing itself. But experiential specific culture training program, this is somehow a kind of training program which is imparted to the expatriates by the managers of the host country, where the managers of the host country can give a detailed briefing of the different aspects of the culture. So it's all about how the managers of the host country can impart this training program, or the kind of interaction that will be there. All of those can be taken as a success factor. Right? So this sort of training program includes role playing, look, see, trip kind of thing, cultural coaching, language coaching, and all of these do have their own way of impacting the organization's outcomes. What method is to be adopted is completely based on the requirement also. But we do have these 4 different category of methods that we can think of, right? And moving further, whenever we do talk of this sequencing the training sessions itself. So we do have this 2 different category of training programs. One is a pre-departure training, the other one is a post-arrival or in-country training itself. You can see It becomes a prime responsibility of ours to make the individual assignee aware of the basic aspects of their livelihood in the host country itself. So, what is there? Now, this kind of pre-departure training is, kind of theoretical training. We can say, like they need to impact this training program before experiencing it. Okay. So, basic information like the currency, the exchange rate, the kind of hotels, the accommodations, the transport system of the host country, the availability of hospitals, maybe the educational system of the host country, the legal system of the host country, all of those, just to make the individual employee aware of the different sort of cultural aspects that is to be imparted, right? But this post arrival or in country training program, right, is intensive in a sense. Here, it facilitates this learning by experiencing, by doing that, right? So the kind of experience that the people do have because of the differences in terms of culture, the beliefs, value systems, everything. Okay? So it's about learning the deeper aspects of the cultural variations. It's about how this modifications are to be made in terms of the skill and development, or skills and abilities of the people when dealing with the parent country or moving from the parent country to the host country itself. So these are some of the significant ways of dealing with the training program. Okay. So whenever we to talk of this international assignments, international training programs, let us understand, right, the four major aspects of this international training and development. Right? We are talking of the first such major aspect is maintaining the relationships, establishing and maintaining the relationships itself. As if you can see here, we are talking of relationships which are confined to the internal as well as external. Internal, in essence, there has to be frequent interactions among these parent country nationals to the host country nationals. So there's a diversity. Interacting with them is a challenge. Right? At the same time, interacting with the external community, the consumer base. We're talking of any other association that the organization does have will be the thrust of this international training program. Similarly, whenever we're talking of taking these relationships, we take family as an important aspect of maintaining these relationships. Right? Organizations need to involve the family members of the expatriate before assigning them any kind of international roles and responsibilities, depending on the requirement of that particular person in the family, depending on the dependencies of the family member on that particular person. This international assignment is decided. We're talking of host country government to home country government, establishing a relationship with the external community we're talking of. So the kind of differences that you do have in terms of political, legal systems, which are completely influenced by the domestic level of government to the host country government itself. So what kind of relationship exists over there, that will define the success. And we're talking of maintaining that relationship with the headquarters itself. Maybe all these expatriates should talk of that. Reporting relationships, right? Then we have understood that there has to be a review of these terms and conditions of assignments itself. Right? So their roles and responsibilities, and what sort of roles and responsibilities are being assigned. Based on that only, the kind of training program has to be decided. Right? So objective has to be specific, right? Whether it is to increase the cultural awareness, knowledge of the host country, knowledge of the foreign language, right? All of those things to be taken into consideration as the major objective, right? Similarly, whether it is to manage the conflicts arising out of the business processes, like the troubleshooters do. So they're in it to think of managing the issues, right? Sometimes we are talking of minimizing the re-entry problems, or repatriation problems, right? So whenever the expatriates complete their international assignment, international projects, they return back to their parent country, right? And there are many such different issues that this repatriates do have. How to deal with that? We will talk of forms of training program, like as if we have understood. So broadly, there has to be pre-departure training program. We're talking of cultural orientation, the area study, language instructions are to be dealt properly. Cross-cultural is T-group training programs or behavioral simulations, case study methods are to be dealt in general to make the employee aware of the issues. Right? Post-arrival training program, where this cultural orientation training, right, intergroup problem solving training programs. These sort of training programs are intensive training programs. Intensive training programs, right? And that is what is to be taken into consideration, right? Intergroup problem solving and all those things. Then we need to talk of the training outcomes. The basic outcomes of the training program is to impart the knowledge about this cultural, political, economical, business, legal, social factors of the host country. Objective is that the employees should be aware of their international assignment, the environment in which they are going to operate, right? The expectations of different parties are to be taken into consideration itself. The international operation itself has to be taken into consideration, right? The kind of relationship that exists there between the parent country to the host country is another one. Now, the objective of the training program is to ensure that people on a long run can accommodate themselves, can adapt themselves with the host country culture, making the international assignment a success. Like in our previous class, we have understood, like most of the people, they do go through this 4 different phases. First phase is the phase of honeymoon, where people do have excitement about the new culture. Second phase, when the people are exposed to the different aspects or nuisances of the host country culture, they pass through the phase of anxiety, right? And then they gradually adapt themselves to the host country culture till they do have their mastery phase, where they completely get accommodated with the host country culture itself. So different phases of adaptability is there. So what we need to do is to plan the training program or design the training program in such a way that the people in all these different phases can be accommodated. Continuing further, let's talk of some of the basic topics that we can have, which may facilitate the international, the success of these expatriates in international processes itself. So, important topics we are talking of, right? Intercultural business skills. The kind of negotiation style in different countries and different cultures are different. Negotiation style itself, where keeping silent is assumed to have your consent. Sometimes keeping silent is assumed that you are not in the process, you are out of the process, you don't have an opinion. So this varies from eastern part to the western part itself, and we need to understand those kind of negotiations. Whenever we do talk of these negotiations, whether we will go for a distributive negotiation process or an integrative negotiation style, that is completely rooted to the culture of the organization. We need to talk of that. Okay. Similarly, we are talking of this culture shock management, right? What kind of stress adaptation the expatriates do have? Okay. How should they deal with those kind of stress adaptations? That is what is the thing. So unless and until the employees, the international assignees are provided with the deeper, extensive, intensive training program on the cultural dimensions of the organization, host country, then probably this culture shock will always be there, prevailing will always be there. We are talking of lifestyle adjustments in the process. Lifestyle adjustments is the expatriates must be facilitated with the basic information related to the health, hygiene, food, education facilities being extended at the host country itself. Right. The basic process of understanding the map of the host country, where they can find out a mall, where they can find out the day-to-day requirements, like may be the grocery requirements, may be any other clothing requirements, whatever it may be. What is the transportation system available in the host country itself? Right. What is the education system? What are the hospitals? Like, where can we find out? Or like, what is the system of getting through that? What are the benefits you are getting out of that? All of those issues are to be dealt with. Similarly, host country daily living issues, like whenever you're dealing with water resources, electricity resources, how to deal with that? That basic information should be provided. Okay. Local customs and etiquettes, like what to wear, when to wear, right? Or there are differences in terms of the gestures for men and women. There are differences in terms of the behavioral pattern, right? So unless and until it is properly being explained to the expatriates, chances are there that expatriates may face problems out of this, differences of culture itself. That is why. Area studies. So here we need to provide the basic political and religious environment, local geography, whereby the employees, the international assignees can be comfortable with. Right? Repatriation problem itself, right? That is what, like whenever these people are assigned with their international career, on the completion of their international assignment, when they return back, we call them as repatriates. But what would be the position of that particular employee once he completes through that repatriation process? Whether he'll be promoted, he'll continue in the same position. All of those issues are to be taken into consideration, right? And language learning strategies are to be taken into consideration. Right? So what we can do is that we can sum up this with the different sort of training and developmental initiatives taken by the organization and different sort of goals that this training and development issues do have, right? And wind up this particular, like cross-cultural orientation pre-departure. This is to ensure that people do have a comfortable lifestyle in the host country itself. Cross-cultural training in country is to increase the cross-cultural adjustments, theoretically, right? Diversity training, nowadays we do talk of diversity, inclusion, and inclusiveness, right? So all those kind of language training, traditional education and international management, individualized coaching, mentoring programs, immersion cultural experiences, all of those things do have specific goals, specific outcomes. So depending on the requirement of the training program, we need to customize the training program and make the like impart the training program, deliver the training program. Right? So let us wind up this session over here with this particular discussion, and maybe in the next class we will talk of the different aspects of performance appraisals in international organizations. So thank you very much and have a good day.